Yeah, yeah. I'm counting my blessings. I time about my energy. I don't waste on nobody. Cause anytime sucks myself. Let's see if I try to talk to yourself. Money get cash, he get cash. Like nobody can they waste my time. Cause anytime sucks myself. Oh, yeah, I can't jump on the high. God is so that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was about to think I'm yo creo que es un gran trabajo. Digo, yo I don't wait on nobody. Many times on my head, so if I try to talk to yourself, money get cash, he get cash. But nobody gonna waste my time. Many times on my head, oh, yeah, can't look back. Yeah, God is so that. I know what I think I'm your body come, my body make a cool my tension. Money in your body, come, my
Hello? Hello?
Hey John, how you doing?
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay, excellent. And we'll just wait for some minutes before. Good afternoon, everybody, or evening, depending on where you are. We'll be starting shortly. We'll just wait for 5 more minutes.
Well, they should know where the sound killer. I could dash him. I could dash him. If you look over here, I can't body, I bring him money. Anybody come back? He then said, "Everybody,
Okay, I think we can begin now. We're still waiting for, I think, Musa and Oswald, but we can start before they come. Good evening, everybody. So, John, Precious, Joshua, thank you for being here, and Mike. Please can you just confirm that you can hear me and see me?
Can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you. Precious and Mike.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, thanks, Precious. Mike, what about you?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, lovely. So thank you everybody for joining today's session on business innovation and e-learning under the Ayoka Fellowship International Forum. We just want to first of all begin by introducing like why we're doing a session on business innovation and e-learning and what exactly the Ayoka Fellowship is. So to begin, basically the Ayoka Fellowship is under Casa de Africa, which is a cultural agency of the Spanish government. And we're working together with Casa de Africa under Porta de Africa to ensure that fellows or individuals, right, with organizations in Africa and Europe are able to be connect together basically to ensure that the cooperation between two continents from a citizen's point of view, right, is fostered essentially. And today's session, we will be having three of our fellows, that is John, Precious, and Mike, discussing with us together with Joshua Musali Baba and Joshua Murima from Brita Bridges, Musali Baba from the Nigerian Startup Bill, as well as Oswald Osaritin, also from the Nigerian Startup Bill. But I'll just make the presentations of who we'll be discussing with today before we go any further. I will start with the speakers, and I'll begin with Joshua because Joshua is the person presently here. Okay. So Joshua Murima is the head of ecosystem engagement and investor relations at Brighter Bridges, a data-driven research firm focused on showcasing the brighter sides of underserved markets. He works closely with the local community of tech founders, hubs, and investors to forge friendships and collaboration in a bid to unlock growth opportunities for entrepreneurs in Africa. So thank you, Joshua, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thanks for the invite and looking forward to hearing from you all.
Excellent. Thank you, Joshua. The next person that will be with us is Musa Alibaba, who is an independent consultant. He's also a technology and finance strategist with over 25 years of varied experiences. He holds a bachelor's degree in banking and finance from the University of Wales, an MBA from the London Business School, LBS, and did the IMP at the Stern School of Business, New York University, NYU. He's also an alumnus the African Angel Academy and is helping to set up an Angel Syndicate in Abuja. He's a member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Nigeria, and a fellow of the Institute of Management Consulting. He has worked at Pfizer, Microsoft, and Oracle corporations, as well as in government. Until recently, he was the founding chief executive officer of TC International, TC Pay. He engages himself in activities aimed at growing Nigeria's IDE ecosystem and serves on the board of FSDH Merchant Bank Nigeria as an independent non-executive director. He was in the second cohort of students at the School for Politics, Policy and Governance and worked as a joint project manager for MIT REAP team in Abuja. And finally, the last person, the last guest that we'll be having today is Oswald Gobadia. And Oswald is currently the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on digital transformation, the Nigerian president. He's the lead on the Nigerian Startup Act, NSA, a project that's strategic to the growth of Nigeria's tech ecosystem and digital economy. He's a member of the Presidential Council on Digital Economy and E-Government. Oswald is a non-executive director on the board of Edo Innovates, the engine hub to drive technology and innovation in Edo State by providing strategic policy guidance, leverage on skills development, investment promotion, and tech advancement in the state. He's the founder of DBH Africa, a building infrastructure and technology solutions provider in West Africa. He actively supports startups in business strategy, operations optimization, and technology. His goal is to influence the economic narrative of Africa for good through helping to build sustainable businesses that contribute to economic development, job creation, and thrive inclusively in an interactive ecosystem. As an African who is passionate about addressing development issues, he believes that startups and SMEs must take the lead to unlock potential, drive, and sustain economic value on the continent. This is evident as he has published a book called In Pursuit: Journeys in African Entrepreneurship. And finally, we'll be going to our fellows. So we have three fellows today: Precious, John, Ayola, and Mike. I will begin with Precious. So Precious is a developer and transformative leader. He is a 2017 Tony Elumelu Foundation alumnus, 2018 YC Startup School graduate, and second runner-up of the 2019 and 2020 Hove Prize on Campus competition. Also 2020 EduTrust Challenge winner, African Union Top 50 Education Innovators, Global Startup Ecosystem fifth annual Digital Accelerator participant, and part of the 2020 Leap Africa Fellow as well. His future career goal is to democratize access to quality education for Africans to equip the growing population. He loves spending time to consult for social entrepreneurs globally. We'll be having Precious talk in a while about Ilemo. That's the project that got him into the Ayoka Fellowship. Hey, Precious. Hope you can hear me. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Pleasure.
Excellent. All right. The next person we'll be having presenting is Mike. Mike is a member of the National Youth Service with the rank of a senior serviceman. He's a volunteer of Kenyan Red Cross Society and a social innovation student at the IFRC Solferino Academy. His future goal is to lead Kenyan youth in creating social innovations and supporting social entrepreneurs for the betterment of humanity. The project that got him into the Ayoka Fellowship is called Limitless. Hey, Mike, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Ayola John Oluwafemi. John is currently a student at the University of Ibadan and undergoing a master's program in forest biometrics. He has been privileged to work with School of Media as hub manager. And as an ambassador to several programs and projects such as the International Astronomy and Astrophysics Challenge, the International Youth Math Challenge, Thought for Food Diamond Challenge, Beyond School Community Challenge, and the World Literacy Foundation. He has won several awards and gained several recognitions, including the Teacher Achievement Award in 2019 and 20, the Active Citizenship in Education Award in 2020 and 21, the IYMC Ambassador Excellent Award in 2019 and 20, the Empowering Young Community Leaders Award, the International Educator of the Year 2021 Award, the TSL 2021 International Schools Essay Competition, Teacher Champion, the Virtual STEM Hub Program Award, and the 2021 International Essay Contest for Young People Award. John has also been a speaker on quality education at the first International SDG conference. The project that got John into the Ayoka Fellowship is the Build New Nigeria Network, BNNN, and John will be taking us on that shortly along this forum. So thank you, John, for being here as well.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. We'll begin straight away, and we are starting off our discussion basically with a question and answer session, a focus group whereby I'll be asking some questions, right, as relating to business innovation and e-learning. And I would like, most importantly, Joshua now and our guest, that will be Musa and Oswald, soon, as well as the fellows. And basically, the discussion will be around innovation and e-learning because it cuts across what our fellows are doing. And for the first question that I want to find out, right, especially from an African perspective, because like everybody represented here today is African, I would like to know basically for you guys, right, and directly maybe to Joshua, what are some of the most promising business innovations that are currently being developed, in your opinion, within the African continent? And how can we ensure that these innovations have a positive impact on society and the environment?
Thanks, Musa, for that question. It's really packed because it's really hard to know what is promising and what is not, because we, as human nature, we are often drawn towards metrics and quantitative criterions or kind of just measurements to defining what is promising or not. So some people tell you that, okay, what's promising is what's been funded. but is that being impactful? I don't know. Fintech is seen as the most promising currently because kind of that space has seen a lot of VC and private sector investment. Is it the most impactful solution around? Most of us will disagree. However, what I see is that the most life-changing solutions in the continent are those that really solve for infrastructure problems, right? And this is true for all of the African countries. The main problem that I think we suffer from is the lack of proper infrastructure in all spaces, really. Looking at food, right? Food, gets produced at the farm, never reaches, the shop at the right time. Access to finance, right? It's mainly an infrastructural problem, right? And because of this lack of proper infrastructure, you'll find that the cost of this finance is usually high, right? Demand and supply, yeah. Looking at logistics, mobility, right? I mean, looking at the roads, proper housing, right? So anyone who is solving for those problems or those spaces, I see them to be promising in a way, and to some extent, the recent investment trends with regards to investments into B2B infrastructure, into B2B commerce, financial infrastructure, things like digital retail, logistics, talking about your Kobo 360, your lorry systems, your market force. Those are companies that have been resilient, COVID or not, right? Because in one way or another, people need things. Whether you're stuck in your bedroom or you go out, you need to move goods, you need to move services as well. So and you need to pay for these. But if there are no payment rails, if you don't have any payment options, then that's usually a huge challenge. So I will see that those are usually kind of the most promising solutions in my assessment. Now, the question around impact, how to make these solutions to be impactful. I mean, I will go back to the basics, really. What is our biggest problem as Africans, right? And the biggest problem, I think, has something to do with the development, right? Looking at our pertinent challenges. And in that sense, then I think all of you will agree with me that the biggest problem in Africa is really poverty. Some might argue it's food, healthcare, but it's just because we are poor. We can't afford good stuff. If you had the money, you'll get the food, you'll get everything but you don't have the cash, right? So how do we really solve for that, right? And create impact in that sense then. So how do we make sure that these promising solutions solve, reduce poverty essentially? Right? And the best way I think to do that is by creating employment, give people jobs, pay them salaries, give them a livelihood, right? And to some extent, these solutions are already doing that, creating either direct and indirect employment. Now, the debate around fair payment, fair salaries, and fair remuneration comes on board. But the moment all Africans have sustainable ways of livelihood, have sustainable and valuable economic activities or the chance to participate in these economic activities, I think that will have kind of the biggest impact around.
All right. Thank you so much, Joshua, for basically starting off us off. And I was taking notes as you were talking, basically, talking about like, kind of like understanding the market and how access to finance is dominating from your own perspective and opinion, and how fintech, right, are being solution providers in this sense. To that and relating to impact, you said that our two problems is poverty and development, because if you have the money, basically you acquire the things that you need at the end of the day. And I think as you were talking, Oswald and Musa Alibaba both joined the call. So good evening, Musa, and good evening, Oswald. Please, can you confirm that you can hear us?
Good evening. I can hear you well. I hope you can hear me too.
Yes, perfectly. Good evening, Oswald. Can you hear us? All right. I think I would like to hear one of the fellows talk on this question as well. So maybe Mike, I would like to hear your own perspective on this. So the same question I asked Joshua, right? I want you to attempt it because you are actively working on a project, and that's why you're in the Ayoka Fellowship, right? So to you as well, like what kind of innovations do you see as like, very, very important or that are changing a lot of things within the continent?
Okay. What I'm seeing that are changing in this continent, or what's promising, especially on side of the technology, um, like the recent the Chat GPT. You see how it's bringing a lot of I can say a lot of changes, and it has really like arose a lot of AI. People are now deep into the technology, coming up with solutions, and I'm seeing people like really get interested and using this tool as a way to get knowledge or even start doing things that they're not doing. So what I'm seeing as a promising in terms of innovations, I'm seeing people like getting too deep into technology on matters of like I said, e-commerce. E-commerce is like what Murimi said is has been shown to be so resilient, and in fact we've seen a rise in e-commerce, especially during the COVID era. If I can guess the data from, it is said it rose from 53% to 60% of now people who use e-commerce on a daily basis. This is almost rise of six countries across the globe. So, right, in matters of technology, e-commerce, to me, e-commerce, I've seen a lot of improvement in e-commerce. I've seen people opening digital shops. I'm seeing people doing business and selling their products while at home. So yeah, to me, for innovators back at me, I'm seeing them rising, especially on the e-commerce side. That's my view.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for that. I love the transition basically from Joshua's fintech to your, starting off with ChatGPT and ending up with e-commerce. Because at the end of the day, right, what will drive e-commerce? It is fintech and fintech companies that allow access to markets to the everyday person. And I think we have a privilege because both Musa and Mr. Oswald worked on a bill in Nigeria that basically can help a lot of these businesses to be able to get to that point, right? Get access to finance as well as get access to products and solve logistics problems. So I'll be asking my next question now to Mr. Musa, Mr. Oswald, and also Joshua. And the question I want to ask is, how can governments, right, with these innovations that are happening, how can governments, private sector, and civil society organizations work together to create an enabling environment for these business innovation? Why? Because at the end of the day, civil society organizations, and especially the private sector, right, tend to have a lot of the businesses, a lot of the innovations that are spurring or the ideas, right? So how can we ensure that these three people work together, or these three organizations or institutions work together? Musa, would you like to start us?
I was hoping you would let Oswald start so that we could get into an argument, as we usually do. We always debate on these issues. But I think the essence of why we're here is that why you have us here is that we worked together. I don't think the question, or it should be a question anymore, about how can we work together, or why should we work together, or I should tell you how this is. We have to adopt a mindset of we must work together. It comes from one fundamental principle. Nobody owns an ecosystem. There's no single gatekeeper, right? And there's no single ecosystem. And we're all different organisms, and we must operate interrelatedly in order to thrive, right? There will be predators, but there will also be those that supersede all of that. If we do not work together, we will fail. If we have a monopolistic mindset where we want to hold on to everything, then we will not build a thriving system, and there will be no investments to come. So it's whether it's the private sector, whether it's the public sector, whether it's NGOs, as you put them, whether it's even the academia and the finance people, everybody needs to be working together and finding out what the next things are. Earlier on, someone spoke about ChatGPT. We can all sit in our silos and figure out what ChatGPT means for us, or we can come together, look at ChatGPT, and then have ideas, and out of the ideas may spark the next great thing. So, let's stop thinking about how can we do it and start saying we must do it. Otherwise, we'll still get stuck in the rut, trying to figure out why we should talk to the guy next door, because the doors are actually adjacent to one another. It's just for somebody to open it to allow the conversation to start. That's from me. Also, I don't know if you want to disagree.
Can we not have peace in this world? Why is it that I have to disagree? I mean, it's obvious that that the public sector and private sector must work together. Collaboration is the key word to move the ecosystem further. When we start talking about having a healthy ecosystem, it involves having all parts of the ecosystem working together for a common goal. This tends to be difficult because what I find is even the private sector people, when you bring them into government-related activities, they start to think with a private sector mind, escalating the public sector mentality. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but this is something I'm also picking up, that when you even bring private sector to come to the government side to try to solve a private sector issue, they are thinking like public sector people and just, escalating the issue to a different direction. So it's important that we understand what the goal is and what the direction we're trying to get to, right? To have a healthy ecosystem, having that counterbalance to ensure that we're looking at a number of issues from dual perspectives and getting to a common ground where we can collaborate and engage to ultimately solve the problem. Anytime you allow one side to overgrow, you're going to have problems, right? That may not have come out perfectly correct, but if you look at a lot of the issues in some of our countries where you have a policymaker or regulator almost seeming overbearing and almost seem like they're competitive, is, any of you that took biology, it's just basically there's no countermeasure to them. So they've now grown beyond policy and now grown into even being a competitor because you're not engaging them properly, you're not collaborating them properly to ensure that you're meeting the right level of balance to ensure that you're allowed to disrupt and create new values, and they are allowed to manage the displacement of that disruption to allow disruption to actually thrive whilst protecting what exists to a certain extent. So there's more of a managed execution going forward. What happens now is either the guy is disrupting in the dark, and then the regulator comes and turns on the light, and everybody scurries and go, "Oh my God, they're trying to kill my business." And that's what you tend to see. Where that comes from is from a lack of engagement, a lack of collaboration, a lack of engagement. When you don't have enough collaboration engagement, you now have ignorance, and you now have overbearing activities that end up stifling growth.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I would like to hear Joshua as well. From your own perspective, especially from Brighter Bridges, like from your work at Brighter Bridges, right? Maybe how you have seen this at play or limiting, businesses in themselves.
Thanks, Musa. So I really think that it's a matter of priorities now. I mean, looking at private sector startups and governments, regulators, they all work with different priorities, right? For businesses, private sector, it's all about making a profit. Yeah, they're in business. For regulators, it's more about restoring or maintaining the public trust, protecting consumers, protecting the public, and making sure that they don't get ripped off. When you look at governments broadly, though, the priorities can be actually different. So some of them are, political. Yeah. Maintaining the status quo, making sure that there is political stability first. Then we've seen that some governments also have their own particular agenda. So if you try to collaborate outside of like these structures, then it becomes really hard to engage them. Now, what we've seen is that structures for collaboration are really key. Just to give you examples, sandboxes, for example, with regulators testing out digital currencies, the application of technology to insurance, right? Especially in spaces that are highly regulated, right? Providing safe spaces for innovators to actually test out their technologies with regulators in close standby to advise that process. That is usually very effective. Secondly, PPPs, right? Situations where governments say, you know what, we'd like the private sector's support to build technology platforms for some of our service delivery. How can we foster collaboration in that regard, right? And PPPs have actually been particularly useful, right? We've also seen quite a number of technologies in the realm of GovTech. So, digital technologies that help governments deliver on their mandate, right? And I guess that has already taken shape in most of our jurisdictions, right? Currently, if you're applying for a passport, it's a digital experience, right? You rarely have to visit offices if you're applying for, parking ticket and all of those, right? So, governments, building these collaborative structures really to allow for more engagement with the private sector, but most importantly, the early stage innovation space. I think that's very important.
All right. I think I just love the way that you categorize it too. So, I mean, business are all about profit. Government, is prioritizing public trust and ensuring that the system in a way, right, continues. And, what you have said, especially with government tech, how basically they are progressing at the end of the day. So that's wonderful. Thank you to the three of you for these contributions. I'll just ask one more question before we start listening to the projects of our fellows. And the project at the end of the day, right, is related to what you said, Joshua, which is basically when you're collaborating, right? And as Oswald said, private people come and they bring, like their private mentality to public-based goals. The public people come and they bring public mentality to private aims at the end of the day. When you're creating a collaboration between private people and public people, I'm more interested like in the team structure. Like, how do you create a team, or how do you create like the vehicle? Because those people that are in agreement together, that are collaborating together at that particular point, are the people responsible to deliver the final aim, right? So whether it is like the government tech platform that you want to build, whether it is, I don't know, a public institution that you're trying to build, or a building, whatever, the people within that form that team, right, are the ones that are going to help out at the end of the day. So I would like to know from your own views, right, and from your own experiences, how can these teams, right, find a way to synergize in such a way that the ultimate aim that they come together for, right, is met? Joshua, would you like to start this time?
Yeah, well, I I haven't spent time in government, but what I know is that governments have to or act within some certain framework, at least ideally, okay? So and this framework is usually provided by law. You can't just organize and set up random teams within the government. You need to, at least, especially in Kenya, at least you need an act of parliament that sets the framework of who is going to be part of that team, how they're going to be selected, what's their tenure, what can they do and what can they do, right? At least from the government part. From a private sector side, what we have actually seen, especially with startups, you're getting more aware that there is need to build structure within your own team that responds to public relations, public affairs, and just government affairs, right? So we're seeing more people being recruited to lead these sides, regulatory affairs, essentially, building lobbying arms within these companies to build those friendships with governments. That's very important. You need to have a dedicated function within your team that just focuses on this. And depending on the state, sometimes you might not really afford it, but you need to be you need to be deliberate, right? That this is something that is part and parcel of what you do as an innovator. Yeah, you really need to be aware of the regulations, the regulatory landscape in which you're operating. You need to know your regulator. You need to be in their good books and build friendships with them, right? And that's very important. Now, the nature of those teams, of course, might be people who are conversant with public policy, political science, etc. But the same way that you build teams to really lead on customer relations and sales, or even product and technology, it's really important to also carve out an effort designed to build collaborations with governments.
Thank you, Joshua. I think the thing I heard, I wrote down was be deliberate, especially when it comes to regulations, right? Because that's what it's all about, I guess, like on the public aspect, but also like the internet, like private sector, as you stated at the beginning, because they have to be careful with the kind of structures that they create. Oswald, would you like to take us further on this point? I think you're muted.
Sorry, so what was the specific question? Sorry.
It's about the teams. So when the private people and the public people come together to achieve a particular goal, right? So especially when it's public focus goals, so provision of, let's say, an institution or a school or a building or something that the government has to achieve at the end of the day, reducing poverty, providing more access to finance, etc. You stated something before, which is that, the private people, when they come together and work with government people, they bring the private capitalist, I guess, mind to the table, and public people do not want to hear anything about it. So when it comes to team structure and like how they work, that's what the question is about. Like, how should they work in a way that will help them to ultimately achieve what is best for everyone else?
Yeah, so I mean, it's critical. I think one of the key questions I've been getting asked of recent, being that I'm a private sector person who went into government, is just basically about what the experience is, and that I believe it's a value add to get certain projects done expeditiously. I would say the answer is yes. But I think that what we must be careful of is that people need to understand the way government works, right? Understand the processes. Why that was so fresh in mind and so came out very, very sharp was because Musa and I just came from a meeting where we had government and private sector people on, And after a while, you start hearing the private sector person sounding like the public sector person, but not for the good reasons. And the public sector person, kind of bewildered and trying to understand what this now means. So, there's, when you are a regulator, I tend to tell people one of the key things you're meant to do, a policymaker regulator, is to protect what exists, right? This is the classic, dichotomy between the private sector practitioners and the policymakers. The practitioners in the startup ecosystem are out to disrupt. They talk about disruption. I think I've had this conversation with you on Think Big. They're out to disrupt. Disruption is what they're out for, and we all want disruption because that's how value is created. But if you don't have this collaborative nature, you don't have this engagement model where your public sector people and your private sector people sit down together to discuss the ecosystem. What the public sector person, the policymaker, will see is displacement, and to them, displacement is bad, right? All they see is something is wrong, and a lot of times they may not know why. They don't know what caused this issue. They have no clue, right? So the only thing you can do is take action. So if you look at some of the situations that happen globally, and on the continent and in Nigeria, you will see a lot of times that the regulator, policymaker is taking action on something happening in the economy or something happening in the environment, and there's no time to try to determine what was the business plan or the business model that drove that disruption that created that displacement, because you're immediately trying to heal the wound, the bleed, right? Something is wrong, and in economies like ours, where simple things like the imbalance or FX can cause huge problems in the economy, you will find that the regulator in charge of that is going to be taking very drastic steps to stem any kind of displacement they see in the environment. And then, a displacement could also be in a form of fraud, right? So when you displace people of their funds directly, that is fraud, right? So you can find that somebody has disrupted your own personal economy and displaced you of your money, and that's where the public sector person, the policymaker, comes into play to ensure that that displacement is stemmed. So both sides have a part to play, and we look for situations where both parties are working together as opposed to just being in this versus, as it seems, but more so making it a managed situation where I intend to disrupt, but I've educated my policymaker on what the potential displacements will be and give them a sense of how long that displacements will be before my disruption starts to yield value that will ultimately override the perceived or the realized gains, I would say, of displacements, right? So you want to be able to lay that out. That say, okay, you mean 6 months of this pain, but we're going to get this kind of growth in the economy. That makes sense. What tends to happen is that conversation is never had, and then ultimately all the policymakers see is the displacement, and that's where the policy actions happen, and that's where the screaming and yelling starts that the business is being destroyed by policymakers.
Very interesting angle. Thank you, Musa.
I think after all of that has been said, I will not, I'll just go into a little bit of the some practical. It's true that there are issues of mutual distrust at times, and that hampers things. But in recent years, I've had the fortune of working at least in two multi-sector teams, and like any other team building event, I'm sure even for your fellows, you had some team building work done. There's a process and a time to build, and that very importantly must be done in this regard if you want to achieve an outcome, especially if you are on the side that is initiating an idea and wants to see it through to completion. You need to recognize that in these situations, you need that cross-sector team, and you don't always have the power equation in your favor. And so it's very important that you tend to take time, A, to build so that people can understand where you're coming from and why you need to work together, but B, to recognize that there are factors, everybody brings some, there's a reason why everybody is sitting at that table, and C, there may be people who are not at the table. You should keep asking who needs to be at this table that is not here right now. And there must be sufficient openness to allow who is not at the table to join in attendance as well. And that comes from the A, which is building the team and building confidence. And like us earlier spoke about, the abilities to take the issues and make sure that people understand that there's a difference between the disruption and displacement effect, and that it may be temporary and not necessarily permanent. Bring that trust into the equation. Finally, and it's very important, especially in the African situation, because sometimes you will be feeling as a private person that why should I talk to government? Well, guess what? When you need to have things change, especially in our area of technology, they tend to be big things or big policy changes or big landmark events. You need a wide base of people. And therefore, you need someone who has the convening power to bring all the players to the table. And more often than not, who has the convening power? It's government, right? In our situation, you have to recognize that convening power is everything. It can be everything. And you have to just be able to give a little to get something back, provided you index into the intentions or the motivations of the other side. But very importantly, as you gain favor and as you gain trust, learn to also recognize the value that each person on the table brings. It's a very important tool because when they know that you recognize them, they're more willing to listen to your own argument. This, I hope, is a practical way of letting you know that these things can work. We, like I said, Oswald and I were on the Nigerian Startup Build together. That's an example of one. I was also on the REAP program, which is an example of another, and both were quite successful. They achieved their outcomes, and we're very happy with that. And there was enough credit to go around, so there was no monopolistic thinking that brought to bear on this.
All right. Recognize the value that each person brings to the table. What a perfect way to transition into our fellows. All right. So our fellows have been working now. I think they started in January 2022. And it's 1 year now since they joined the Ayoka Fellowship. And they have been working on their projects, Precious, Mike, and Ayola John. And they'll be explaining what their project is right now to us. And we have two guests here. Joshua had to jump off, right, and I guess also as well, but like we'll have Musa with us, and we'll just be listening. And then Musa, I want you to thoroughly talk to them and engage with them as regarding.
Oswald is still here. It's still here, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Relating to what they have been doing under the Ayoka Fellowship. So, John, would you like to start us off? You have 10 minutes to tell us what your project is about and what you've been doing.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ayola John Oluwafemi. I'm actually from Nigeria, and I'm working on a project which I actually called Building Nigerian Networks. Building Nigerian Network is actually an initiative that is working to bridge the gap of quality education and ICT skills among the less privileged. I realized that we have a lot of people that have ideas, young people, most especially the less privileged, and they don't really have somebody to support them to actually bring those ideas to reality. I mean, innovations. So that's the reason why I started this particular initiative. And then starting up in 2016, I started on Facebook, since I cannot really afford the cost of having big events. And in 2017, I moved on to public school. So we trained them on how they can actually make use of these ICT tools like Microsoft Word, and then we gave some of them access to internet because we believe they don't have this access. And then moving on, I was privileged to serve at Daura, a federal government college, Daura, in 2018, and I volunteered for an organization called Mind the Gap. So I was able to work with them, and then we trained a lot of students in that vicinity. And then moving down, then in 2018, I also joined International Youth Mass Challenge as an ambassador with the hopes to able to give necessary information that young people need for them to be successful in life. And then I realized that a lot of them, they even understand, they are talented, as I've said earlier. So, but they don't really have all this opportunity because they are unable to access internet. So I make sure that they have this access to information they need to. And in 2019, I also joined International Astronomy and Astrophysics Challenge, which is actually similar to the first organization, but these people, they are working on astronomy. So I actually saw this as an opportunity for young people to learn about what is actually going on in their environment, like the planet, the interaction between the moon and the planet. So, and that's the motive why I actually joined this organization. And so far, so good. I've been able to register a lot of students for this program, and then they're able to, while they are still in secondary school, they're able to go through research skill, like acquire research skill, which we actually help them later in future. And then in 2019, I joined School Media. School Media is actually an organization that partners with federal government. They are in Unity schools in Nigeria. So what their own mandate is just to digitalize schools, Unity schools, and then equip students with ICT skills also. But as for me, I go beyond because of my own missions to empower these kids, because then I use this privilege to encourage these kids to develop innovation, because I discovered they have a lot of ideas, but there's during the discussion, we are saying about how can a question was asked about how can we actually collaborate with government, with NGOs and private sector. But I discovered that these people, they don't have access to the government, they don't have access to private sector. So through my initiative, I supported them, and then at the end of the day, they were able to bring up an initiative which they called they are able to develop an initiative using the plastic with plastic to have an initiative, to have a torchlight, which they are trying to solve the issue of climate change by reducing by reducing plastics. And as time goes on, I also have the privilege to work with another set of students that develop an app called Medex. So Medex is just like a software that that keeps records of patients in hospitals. So this particular software was developed during COVID-19. So, and then we all know that during COVID-19, there is a saying that we should distance for ourselves. We have distance between ourselves. So this app actually helped to make appointments with the doctors and able to take records also. And the amazing things about this project, which I'm actually happy about, is the fact that those people have been able to work with, they are now able to train other people, and they are able to do it themselves. And then the main reason for this project is just to make sure that we have our solution, we build our solution by ourselves, and then we use it by ourselves. And I think that will help us to have employment, and then this issue of crime will be reduced in our country, Nigeria. So, and this particular project has able to, and I have privilege to partner with other international organizations also. And I want to use this moment to really appreciate Ayoka Fellowship. I think Mr. Musa said something the other time about team building. So during this time, I was able to build a team. So about those teams are actually from those people that have that benefited from this initiative, and then they are able to also make impacts, and which I'm very, very happy with. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for explaining that. I'll just, Musa, it's over to you now. How far?
Hi, hello, John. Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes, I listened to you very closely. I'm not going to make life difficult for you. I'm just going to ask a few questions and put a few seeds, right? Hoping that maybe you can add that to the learnings from the fellowship as you build across.
Okay.
First of all, where are you based? Where in Nigeria are you based right now?
Presently in Ogbomoso in Oyo State.
Ogbomoso, yeah, okay. And I know it very well. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
You know, you mentioned that you were in Daura, and then I said, okay, this man is moving around a fair bit, but it's a good thing that you are looking at the youth and trying very hard to get them to be involved through different avenues for the dealing with things that dealing with problems that we have. And you mentioned something that resonated with me, which is that we have to be creating solutions by and for ourselves, correct?
Yes.
That's what you said, and that is true. And the reality is that we have so many big challenges ahead of us as a continent in Africa, that people need to actively be looking to deal with these solutions. More often than not, we look to import the solutions, but we cannot import the solutions to many problems we have. We cannot import enough water manufacturing plants. We cannot import enough, or not water manufacturing, people think that's a commercial, water treatment plants for the rivers and the wells that we have. We can't import enough of that. We can't import enough power stations, even though we need electricity daily, and so on and so forth. These are big challenges, especially as our population, which is young, grows and multiplies further. So it's a good thing what you're doing. My only question for you, and again, like I said, it's not necessarily a question you must answer now, but it's a concern. We in the area of innovation always are looking at, will an idea scale up? That's one of the critical questions that we ask ourselves. Will an idea scale up? So even as you are looking at the social enterprises that you are creating and that are also giving rise to the children who have ideas. I listened to what you said about the plastic recycling. They are good ideas, but the question that we have to ask you frankly is, are you going to be able to make them scale up? Can you turn it from 1 kilogram to 1,000 kilograms? And if so, how? Can you turn it from 1,000 kilograms to 10,000 kilograms of recycling? And if so, how? Right? These are how you start. You need to be answering these questions early on. How do you, ultimately, it challenges you in any undertaking that you have to create a system. And that is where I think we that are looking at the business innovation in Africa always have to be asking ourselves is, are we creating a system? And if we're not creating a system, or if there are factors that are limiting our ability to create these systems, do we have an alternative, or do we have a recourse that we can make to solve that, shall we say, hurdle, in order that we are able to um, to get to scaling up? Because everything is about scaling up. Our problems are big. You can't use a small solution to hit a big problem. So you have to scale up the solution to be able to accommodate the problem, right? So that's all I'll give to you, John, as my comment for now. I wouldn't want you to answer it. I respect what you are doing, and I just want you to pay more thought to it and to use this fellowship as a platform for answering that very naughty question about scaling up. Musa, I hope that this serves the purpose, but you can challenge me further.
No, it's excellent. I'll allow John to respond. I think he's eager to respond to you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for that, your advice. But as regards to scaling up, what I'm actually doing presently is just to encourage these younger ones. That's why I make mentions of, that's the reason why I make mention of the recycling, and then I still make mention of software. Like, I want to really develop their innovative skills. That's the idea. And as regards to that scaling up again, while I was with these kids, I tried to scale up. I really tried. I needed to, so we needed to gather some plastics, we cut it, and then even if there's chance, I can actually send you a video of, like, we are not doing one, so that for you to see, like, it's not one like we are doing before I actually left that place. And even recently, I'm not, it's not like I'm building, like, okay, I want to be in this area of them. I just want to tell them, like, oh, we have a lot of opportunities. Even recently, I've left that school now, I think, okay, 2 years ago now. And recently, even if not on Monday, I received a message from one of those students that she needed a link for scholarship abroad. And these are what I've been encouraging them to do. Unlike those people, like we have some school here in Nigeria, I think, which you can actually agree with me, like they are in their schools, it's more or less like a rich school. They encourage them to do all these things, travel abroad, do a lot of things. So these are the opportunity that I want to make available to those students. And before, let me, I forget to add this. Presently now, I'm even looking at, if possible, if I can actually have an ICT hub, because most especially this less privilege I'm actually talking about, they don't have access to internet, they don't have access to ICT. So if I can have ICT hub in one of these public school here in Ogbomoso, so they will have access to it, and then they will able to have access to internet and all of that things. Like why I saw something about this AI of it, in like what AI can do. I have a lot of software app. I saw a lot of apps on that, and then I was discussing with a friend, like, if we are not able to train this privilege about this manual one, I mean the Microsoft and the likes, and then we are introducing another one, how are they going to cope with it? So I'm just trying to more or less bringing that gap of information between the less privileged, and so that they were able to compete with their counterparts, which are from the rich homes. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you very much. I understand what you're saying, and I think was it Joshua earlier on who spoke about being deliberate? I can't remember whom it was. Right? Whatever you want to do, you have to be deliberate in what you are setting out to do. And that may mean you may want to achieve a whole wide set of things, but you may need to narrow down at least at the beginning, you know. Here's the thing. I understand why you are going towards the young ones. And sometimes the young ones may not understand why you're spending so much time, but you're right in saying that you need to give them opportunity, right? I found out recently to agree with you or in agreement with you, I often try to make the shocking point, and that's something you may want to try, a little bit of shock factor. Many of us in our country, as you know, would like to work for government. We want to believe that there are that a government job is safe, secure, and therefore, you know, whatever it is. But I tell them there are not enough government jobs to go around nowadays. You know, people sometimes believe that it's through, um, uh, you know, influence peddling or what have you. But even the influence peddling is drying out. There are not enough government jobs to give. And the population is growing way faster than that. So the reality is that what you are doing is what the opportunity is for this multitude of young people who do not have the access to government jobs. The first thing and the first key point is that, yes, you're now going to get a few who are interested in recycling, who are interested in a variety of other undertakings, like you said, software development and what have you. You have to scale up the interest. And that's why I've started using the shock therapy. So that more of the young ones understand that this government job that they think they'll be going around and police will be escorting them where have you, it's not going to happen. And so they have to find something else to do. So you have to be deliberate in getting the interest from the young ones. Whatever you need to do or say to get their attention, to bring them into focusing on being productive in other forms that they can create businesses out of, become entrepreneurs, and become more successful than how they would be if they were in government down the road through innovation would be very important. Finally, and you did mention something, I didn't write it down, but I thought to speak up on it, was around creating an ICT hub in your in one of the schools that you belong to. And the way I heard you say it is like you need somebody to almost donate an ICT hub and then you can put it to work, right? So I'm going to be cynical on this call. I'm not going to be the donor, or I won't yet commit to donating any such thing. But here's the thing: politicians like to donate ICT hubs. There are also agencies like NCC or NITDA or I forget the name of this one. It escapes my head, but I'm sure it will come back. Who donate ICT hubs to schools? If the school in that community has not, then I would challenge you. Now, this is where put into practice, excuse me, see, we lost light here. Put into practice one of those things that we spoke about earlier comes into play, the intersectoral meetings. You may have political people like your member of the House of Representatives for Bomosho, or I think Bomosho has two, as a matter of fact, or you may have the state governor. Challenge them to go to those who make the decisions. They have the convening power and the ability to make the decision, to influence those that make the decisions in the NITDAs and NCCs and universal, what's it called? Universal, why does the name exist? Anyway, those places, right? USPF, that's it, Universal Services Provision Fund. They are in a position to influence that. They have the convening powers to bring these people to bear, and they have the powers to therefore get it for the school, the ICT hub located in the school. So please do try to let it done.
All right. So thank you so much, Musa. And thank you, John. because of time, we'll have to move on to the next fellow, just so that Musa can be able to talk to everyone as well. And I would like to go. If Mike, are you with us? Hey, Mike.
Yes, I'm with you, guys. I'm with you. Yeah.
All right, excellent. So let's hear you for 10 minutes, as well. Go ahead.
Okay. And yeah. Hello. My name is Mike Odhiambo. I'm from Kenya. Exactly in Mombasa City. It's a coastal town. So my project name is called Cyber Limitless. And if you could allow me, if I can share, to be better. I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
So yeah. So Cyber Limitless is it's a group of 5 people. We call ourselves freelancers. We actually work in different companies, but usually donate our time to in this our time in this group of ours to support humanity. Our main aim is supporting humanity through digital literacy and e-commerce. So we actually, 5 of us, we believe that you can never start talking about technology if you've not talked about digital literacy. Why come in with big words like technology, come in with big words like coding, and yet we are not spreading digital literacy? Because we found out that there's a lot of gap, and this gap has been brought due to lack of access to tech, access to internet, access to actually digital literacy classes, computer classes. So these are according to statistics that we found that according to 21 International Telecommunication Union Digital Development Statistics, by end of 2021, we have roughly 60% of the world population was using the internet. An estimated 4.9 billion people also, and also 2.2 billion who are youths, mainly age of 25, are offline. Imagine 2.2 billion people are offline, and these are statistics for globally. We also looked into, according to the report, students without a reliable tech and internet access have a lower GPA than those with access. This has led to 4 to 6% dropouts. This roughly costs the government or costs the people who are cost people about 2.2 billion to 33 billion. This is loss because of not training people on digital literacy. Because nowadays, we talk about the future, we see where we are going. We see how people are going to cybersecurity, people engaging in information technology, people engaging themselves in matters of website creation. But you cannot create employment without digital literacy. Nowadays, even people who work here at supermarkets have to know a little bit of computers, have to know a little bit of how to do Excel, a bit of Microsoft Word here and there. So that's our focus. We are training youth and women on digital literacy. So our primary focus is digital literacy, e-commerce, innovation, coding and IoT, innovative finance, and recently we started doing geographical information satellites. This is we help mapping, we help in humanitarian response. Like recently during the Turkey-Syria earthquake, we responded by doing open street mapping. So we mapped the cities and regions that were affected by earthquake. That is one of our focus. But mainly, these are our training steps. We'll start with digital literacy, where we, on basics of computer basics, internet, Word, Excel, safety while using internet, buying digital devices. So we train our youths here in Mombasa, Kilifi County, and across the coastal region on digital literacy. After training that, people come with like an idea or are really interested on what the computer can offer. Now people engage into, for some engage into freelancing. Freelancing is doing transcription, translation, creative writing, academic writings, and they earn a little bit of income from these platforms like Upwork, Guru, Fiverr. These are online platforms that pay freelancers on the little tasks they do. You also see some people engaging in e-commerce. So what we do, we also train people on e-commerce, and actually e-commerce was one of the projects that we did during COVID-19. That is during 2020, 2021. It was really a success. Actually, we managed to train about 72, no, not 72, but 120 women on e-commerce, and we managed to open 72 shops. These are digital shops at different e-commerce websites. So you can just imagine, up to date, these women are being able to sell their products online, and previously they were not able, because these are women that had they were making handicraft items, they were making jewelries, they were making shoes, baskets, and were selling at markets. But due to COVID, during the restrictions, we had to close our markets, we had to close shops and be at home. So imagine it was a challenge for them to get income, to get their livelihood. So we managed to organize trainings to them, to these women, and we managed to train 120, and actually 72 of them opened shops. They opened shops in e-commerce websites like Adasoko, like Jumia here in Kenya. These are e-commerce websites in Kenya. Later on that, more people became interested, and few of them joined coding. So currently we have a coding club that recently joined, and we usually meet every Saturdays. So one of us on the weekends attends the training, and we look into a topic. So we are currently developing a new youths who are coming up in website developing, apps, and etc. So we remember, because of digital literacy, it's what brought all these other things. So it what brought freelancing, it brought e-commerce, it brought coding, the IoTs. People are trying new things. We've seen during our classes in this club, we've seen people coming up with new ideas which they did not have. And all of this were brought in because we started by the basics, digital literacy. So if I could continue, this is our beneficiary data. So far, we've like e-commerce, like I said, we have had 120 120 beneficiaries, mostly were women actually. 72 of them we opened for them digital shops. We did mapping and planning, which we trained 44 youths on how to map, how to use OpenStreetMaps. This is use of satellite images, which are available, which are openly available to the locals. We also trained on freelancing, literacy, and coding, which these are the numbers. In digital literacy, we are at 368. While in freelancing, we are at 84. While at coding, we are 22. So yeah, we are not an old company, like I say. We just not even an old group. We just started roughly during 2020, during the COVID era. It's when we started doing a lot of these trainings. And like I said, we are a group of five members who are in different jobs. We work in different areas, but we contribute our time to benefit the community. Our work is based on humanity, and all our trainings, we don't charge, actually. We do all our trainings for free. So our achievements, these are our achievements. We were able to be awarded during the top 40 under 40 humanitarian tech award that took place in Rwanda. So we received the award courtesy of that was presented by the Microsoft, IEC Telecom, Speedcast, and Mikel. So yeah, I'm happy I represented the group to Rwanda, Kigali. This was this year, February, and actually I was the only African among the 40 under 40 youths in the entire world. So I participated in the event and got an award. The other award was the Innovation Award that was awarded by the Kenya Red Cross here in Kenya. That was last year December, where I received the most innovative humanitarian response. So yeah, like I said, our group is mainly of humanitarian, and yeah, so we were able to receive a humanitarian award last year because of our engagements and because of our assistance to humanity. We also have been recognized by Coastal Region for our Inclusion Award. This Inclusion Award actually was because of one of our members made a boat that, like a prototype boat that he was able to, has a ramp that uses IoT, actually, uses IoT that, a ramp that can enable persons with disability, someone that is using a wheelchair, to go for fishing, to go to see dolphins, to go into deep in the oceans, to have what she's going to do, maybe fishing, tourism. But this boat actually opened a way for people living with disability. It's very difficult to see boats that are specifically for persons with disability, or to see a boat, or to see someone who on wheelchair going for fishing. Actually, I don't know if anyone of you has seen someone on wheelchair going for fishing, but actually this boat, someone can go for fishing. But it was made actually because it was made from, the prototype was made by one of us through use of Arduino kits, and we tried using the coding. We did some adjustments here and there, and yeah, we were able to, yes?
You have 1 more minute, please.
Okay, I'm almost done. So this is our team, 5 of us. One is in charge of innovation, digital literacy. One is coding and IoT. These are some of pictures of our trainings. This was an IoT class, Arduino. We also do campaigns, online safety and cybersecurity. And this is also one of the mapping for women. We train women on mapping using JS. So yeah, thank you for that. I'm done.
Okay, excellent. Musa, once again, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. I saw on the picture, just please, I'm looking for your trouble here, but I saw Mike Laster and I see Mike Odiambo. Are they the same person? Or
yeah, that's me. That's me. Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Good. So I looked at your presentation, and to be honest with you, I don't have. I want to say this to all the fellows here. Please try to exchange ideas with Mike. It's not just because of the fact that he had slides to present. No. There's a methodical element to what he presented to us and how he's chosen to go about it. And in the business of innovation, truly that logic applies. If you saw the step-by-step diagram, it started with digital literacy. And that is a very key point to note, that people need to be digitally literate to participate in the digital economy, right? And we all have people around us that we're trying to influence, and we all want them to, take what is digital, but we do not quite question whether digital literacy has been reached to an appreciable level. So that is why this is in step one. Before you go to step two, step and other steps, right, where you are building on that digital literacy to create additional layers of skills, including e-commerce. And again, e-commerce is not surprising. It's not surprising that you had the highest number of subscribers in e-commerce or students, because that is where impact can be greatest within the digital economy in our context. So you have data to show the directions that you can go and where things are going to be. Then finally, you've gone beyond that into the realms of IoT and so on, which means you're keeping an eye on the future. So in the way that Mike has presented all of this, it is a learning for all of us to look at where the foundations are, what is important, where the biggest impact can be gained, and what comes in the future. This is a very good sort of structure that you can use to make a case in each and every one of your endeavors. So I just wanted to put that out there to ask people to emulate this, to learn from Mike, and to see what more can be done. Finally, you showed the effort. I mean, most times when we talk about Kenya, or when there's talk about Kenya, we hear of Nairobi, but Mombasa is a very important city in Kenya because it's a port, right? So it's very nice to actually see what is going on in Mombasa. And maybe down the line, if you have the chance, Mike, there may be some things that are of particular use and importance to Mombasa, not necessarily Nairobi, that will help us understand better where Mombasa has an edge over Nairobi when it comes to innovation opportunities. And I'm sure the port element of it and that element of transportation may have something to do with it, but I'm not going to prejudge that. For others, finally, I love the Arduino camps that you showed. I love the fact that you included women and that you targeted them and you have a diverse base of people that you engage with, because that's very important in showing that, you know, the digital economy is not discriminatory. It impacts everybody. So it's important to ensure that the participants in the digital economy are also from all corners and all walks of life. So I just wanted to give you credit and to give you encouragement to continue with what you are doing. I like the logic of what you are doing. And like I said, if anything, just going forward, try to be one of those that helps to put Mombasa on the map by making Mombasa's prominence shine in the way that you present what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. In that case, I think we can go to the final person. Thank you so much, Mike, for that presentation. Precious, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me too?
Yeah, excellently.
Oh,
Okay, so you have 10 minutes. Present away.
all right. Thank you so much. Just a minute, please. All right, good. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much once again for this opportunity to present and to be here. And also gain a lot listening to everyone speak and talk on this certain peculiar issues. So once again, my name is Precious, the CEO at Ilemo. Ilemo is an edtech startup, and what we've done at Ilemo is that we've built an e-learning platform, basically. So in 2014, I graduated from secondary school, top of my class. But that year, I failed one of the matriculation examinations, and I couldn't gain admission into university because I had failed. So it's worth to note that in Nigeria, based on statistics released by JAMB, which is the body that conducts one of the matriculation examinations, and based on data from West Africa Examination Council too, over 1 million secondary school students fail at least one of their matriculation examinations every year, and they have to wait another year before they can retake these exams. So, for instance, last year, 1.3 million students failed the UTME, one of the matric exams, out of the 1.7 million students who took the exam. It's also sad to note that over 70% of these students will never get to retake the exam due to financial constraints. And what can happen is that, I mean, what this means basically is that they are short from accessing higher education. They get to live a life with low income earning skills, and most times they contribute to the large pool of unskilled labor. And this can actually affect the growing workforce of Nigeria and Africa at large. So, to solve this problem, what we've done is we have developed an e-learning platform, and that's my project in the Ayoka Fellowship. So our e-learning platform helps students to prepare for matriculation examinations. We give students the opportunity to practice questions based on the standards of these matriculation examinations, and then we present the answers in a comprehensible, conversational, and interactive way with the aid of diagrams and animations to drive on the point. Students can also take tests based on topics so that they can get formative feedback and also learn adaptively. Students can also ask their own questions from our network of tutors. And with that feedback system, we're able to constantly update and rework on our content. So based on student engagement on our platform, another innovation that I want to work on is the use of artificial intelligence to do a question level analysis so that we can be able to measure each student's strengths and weakness, basically, both at a micro and even at a macro level. So for us, we've invested so much in our content development to ensure that the content to develop is a quality content. That is what we're giving the students. So it's our biggest competitive advantage, actually. And currently, we have the best content in Nigeria for matric exam preparations. So to date, we've reached over 4,500 students across 5 English-speaking West Africa countries. That's Nigeria, Ghana, Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone. We've also formed 39 partnerships, and we're also working on securing partnerships with EPFL, which is the Federal Institute of Polytechnic in Lausanne, Switzerland, and also the University of Teacher Education in Switzerland. And we're trying to get support on experiments, simulations, and recorded experiments from agencies from these institutions. So I want to speak briefly also on the problems, the challenges, and interventions in the K-12 education in Nigeria. Basically, I'm using in Nigeria, basically, and of course, I'm also going to speak about other countries in West Africa, that is English-speaking West Africa, where we have presence in. So there are top things I feel we should know, especially in Nigeria. One, in 2016, the UNESCO published a report that the Sub-Saharan Africa needs to recruit 17 million primary and secondary school teachers by 2030, because the Sub-Saharan Africa faces the largest teacher gap all over the world. Also, it is worthy to note that by 2030, members of the United Nations, we all inclusive, both and not just members. I mean, when I say members of the United Nations, I'm talking about even private organizations, public organizations, all of that. We are all trying to achieve SDG 4, that is quality education by 2030. So these are like 2 goals that we're trying to reach. Actually, at one end, we're trying to recruit more teachers. We need to recruit more teachers by 2030. And in all our efforts in the e-learning business, what we're also trying to do is to ensure that we're able to achieve SDG 4 by 2030. So amidst these 2 goals, there are like 3 core systemic problems, which I would also want to identify. I don't claim to be exhaustive, but I feel like these 3 top systemic problems are actually worthy to note. One is infrastructural deficits. Existing schools and institutions in Nigeria, both from the primary to the tertiary, existing institutions, basically, they still lack basic amenities, from lack of electricity to lack of clean water and sanitation equipment and laboratories. Then government spend too. Generally, government spend on education in Nigeria, and I believe most African countries, quite low. And there have actually been campaigns and persuasion from relevant stakeholders for governments to increase the amount they allocate to education their budget. And one other important systemic problem I would also identify is parent perception. A lot of parents, especially those who are illiterate and who never got access to formal education, they still don't value formal education. So a lot of these parents also have this false idea or false belief that the government should take care of everything concerning their children's education. So they do little or no investment at all in their kids' education, which is very wrong. So this is another thing, because it's what happens is that it causes a strain on the limited resources that we have for education. So I talked earlier on how the growing workforce of Nigeria is being affected by the mass failure rates of matriculation examinations. Because if the way it works is, if the students don't get access to higher education, they basically just contribute to the pool of unskilled labor, which is a problem considering the future of work, considering the what we are seeing in technology, AI, robotics, automation. I mean, if we are not equipping our kids, if we are not equipping our children, if we are not equipping the students with a basic secondary school education, it's very difficult for them to compete globally, right, with what the future is going to demand. So, and then based on the estimates, based on estimations, and based on projections, Nigeria is also estimated to reach 500 million in population by 2050. So what this means is that by 2050, between now and 2050, we need to teach 300 million children. So that means we need to start investing. We need to start providing solutions. We need to start bringing up interventions to actually tackle these systemic problems, right? So I know there have been a number of interventions that have been creating impact, from e-learning to learning management systems to MOCs and all of that, because the argument here is, or the case here is, that leveraging on technology in education can actually make quality education affordable and also make it accessible by just leveraging technology. Because, like I said, infrastructural deficits, this is a problem that even developed countries still face, actually. I mean, infrastructure is a lot of money to put in place, right? So the case here is that if you leverage technology in education, then we can actually make quality education affordable and accessible. So I'm going to speak again on my own intervention, or our own intervention at ILEMO, what we've been able to do. So for us at ILEMO, there are two core areas that we focus on. One is in the area of quality content, because the lack of quality content is actually a consequence of some of the systemic problems I mentioned earlier. So mainly in the niche where we operate, that's the final year space of secondary school education. That's the niche we operate in. So in that space, there is low quality content, basically, in the area of test preparations for these students, and that's why millions of these students fail their exams year in, year out. So what we've done is that we've tackled this problem. So we've been able to develop our own in-house content, because the widespread solution in the market, what is mostly available for these students to use, are low quality content, practice questions textbooks. That's really what's available for them. Other e-learning platforms basically just replicate this same low quality content on a tech platform. So for us, we've been able to really work on our content to ensure that we are giving the students the best, especially in the area of test preparations. In 2020, we're recognized by the African Union as one of the top 50 education innovations in Africa. Another thing we've also worked on is infrastructure. One thing we discovered is that, and this is also a general problem that edtech e-learning innovations face. There's a problem in Nigeria and Africa at large, and other countries too outside Africa. So hardware and internet connectivity, those are like two major things, right? So for the people we target, for our own target group, they are mostly kids, they are mostly students who might not own a smartphone in order to access our e-learning platform. So what we've done is, in 2019, we developed a local area network system that is with low-cost devices, actually. So what we did with that was that we created an intranet so that we can be able to serve students in other sub-communities, that is in areas that don't have access to internet connectivity. So we've been able to successfully pilot that in an underserved community in Ibadan, your state. And currently, these students, so what we do is we partner with the school, and then we host our platform on the intranet so that students can on what, and we are leveraging on the school computers as the hardware, and then our intranet, so we are leveraging that to provide our quality content to without the need for internet. So that's something we've been able to do and something we've been able to tackle on our own end. So to conclude, I'm really grateful for the Ayoka Fellowship, for the resources, the trainings, and the mentorship. And the main thing that's actually stood out for me throughout this fellowship was actually at the beginning of the fellowship. And that was the need to engage stakeholders in solving problems or in bringing out any interventions, right? For me as an entrepreneur, I was tempted to just try to solve the problem at the surface. But with the Ayoka Fellowship, I got to learn the importance of identifying the systemic problems. Because in order to create a sustainable impact, you need to understand what are the systemic problems. You need to solve the problem from the root, right? So that's something that the Ayoka Fellowship provided for me. So right now we are engaged with stakeholders because we believe that the systemic problems or the solution we're bringing in, we can't do it on our own. We can't create this impact on our own. So right now we engage with stakeholders such as parents, ministries of education. We're trying to now work with ministries of education. We also work with schools, we work with tutorial centers, and we also work with teachers. So we have a framework that can actually work with for schools, right? So right now we have a framework to partner with schools in order to create impact and solve the problem. We have a framework that can work with NGOs, we have a framework that can work with ministries of education and even philanthropy. So we are actually open to more collaboration. That was one thing that the speakers earlier mentioned. We are open to more collaborations in order to ensure that we're able to provide and offer a solution to more people and make more impact too. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Precious. Thank you for explaining a little more to us. Musa, over to you now.
Thank you very much, Precious, or Ishola. I don't know which you prefer.
Precious is fine.
Precious is fine. Okay, so I'll call you Precious. Please bear with me. You know, it's the sun is setting as it is, and you know that you've been saying infrastructure, 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 and I understand where you're coming from. I mean, look at it. In an office, we've had to switch off the generators, and you know there's no power at the moment. So you know I'm talking to you in the dark or in the increasing dark. So I understand where you're coming from with these issues, and these are things that we have to deal with. You've also said that the Ayoka Fellowship has afforded you one thing, or well, I'm sure it's one of many things, but you mentioned taking systemic looks at problems. It's very important. I cannot reiterate that more. You know, our delve into the motivation for many of us who were involved in this forming the Startup Act was exactly this, right? We've all run our companies. We're probably not the beneficiaries per se of the act, but we know how much struggles, the numbers of struggles that we went through as entrepreneurs. And, you know, nobody in their right mind would want that to happen to the next generations of entrepreneurs, where the same difficulties, the same complaints over and over again, and different actors needed to solve the problem. So we thought, why don't we try to drive towards an act? And the hope is that others will now benefit from it. So going through systems is a very important way of dealing with it. Now, when I hear you speak, Precious, you are very passionate about the technology, and you certainly seem to be passionate about the education aspect, the education outcomes that your technology brings. I want you to ensure, I would advise that people sometimes more important than the technology. And I say this as a technology person. even fintech, when we talk about fintech, fintech still needs the people to use it. Technology needs the people to use it, and it needs you to cater to the people and their norms and their habits and their ways in order to make it possible for them to use your technology, right? So I understand what you say. You want to use technology to boost education towards meeting the SDG 4 goals. I understand that perfectly. Please put people always at the center of your reckoning when you're doing so. Otherwise, you'll worry about why do I have this very nice thing and people are not using it? Do you think people don't appreciate it? It may not be so. It's just whom you put in the center. Finally, I think I want to ask you a question, and I'm going to say ought, which makes no sense whatsoever, but I'm going to ask you about your ought. And this is born out of SWOT analysis, right? And I'm not too worried about your strengths or weaknesses. You know that well, I don't, and I don't need to. But I want to ask about the oughts. And in each of these, I'm going to ask probably just one question, one on the O and one on the T. So Precious, on the O, opportunity side, you have spoken about collaboration and you've spoken about stakeholders, right? And I think you used the term education ministries and a variety of other types to explain the kind of stakeholders you want to collaborate with. But there's a kind of stakeholder, a different kind of stakeholder that I wonder if you have considered collaborating with, and that's potentially a competitor. Have you considered collaborating with a competitor or somebody that may look like a competitor?
Okay, all right. Can I go now?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes. So at start, when we launched 2018, the answer to the question is yes. So although we didn't start that immediately because, like you mentioned, we're scared of competition. But right now, what we do is we work with tutorial centers who, in a sense, are actually like our potential competitors. So for right now, we actually partner with them. So we offer our products, our services as a complementary product to service to what they already offer. So we are trying to, and it's a model that reduces our cost of acquiring these students as customers. So yeah, we're actually working on that. But we started that last year, but we're trying to increase efforts in that regard.
Okay, great. Thank you for doing that. And please pay attention to those elements where there are opportunities for collaboration or partnership with even those that you may not think about. Bear in mind, and I'm just going to use, I come from the finance side, so please forgive me when I talk my nonsense, finance nonsense, as it were. But think about the fact that, we all have bank cards, for example, and you have your Visas, your MasterCards, and your Verve. But you also have one POS machine that can read all three. You don't need to have one, you need to, and that's what multiplies transactions more than if they were all exclusive, right? If there was all that exclusivity, then we would not be in a position to multiply the appeal of each single one. So there are going to be opportunities for you where working with somebody that may seem to be a competitor can actually multiply your market, as the case may be. So don't rule that out. So that's on the O. Now on the T, the threat side. I just mean to ask you a question, and I mean nothing by this, but have you thought about what about the threat of ChatGPT to your business model and what you do about it if that were so?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So on one hand, one thing we're actually looking at seeing how we could leverage a platform like ChatGPT, because ordinarily, like I mentioned earlier, we have a service where students can ask their own questions and get a response. So we're trying to see how we can make use of the APIs from ChatGPT to and embed it in that service so that students, especially those in the social science class, could actually get their answers in real time. Or for ChatGPT, I would say one advantage we have, or let me say one edge we have right with the stage where technology is that we develop our content in a way that it is structured and aligned with the country's curriculum. So it is, and not just the country's curriculum, the exam body's curriculum. So that's something that a platform like ChatGPT, which is just a pool of different data from all over the world, would not be able to offer. So our own the content on our platform now is more curriculum specific, more country curriculum specific for the students, and it's also highly organized in the way that the curriculum dictates, right? So that's something we have now, and that's another. And it's not just ChatGPT. There are also a lot of other free, massive open online learning platforms out there that even from from other countries outside of Nigeria. But one advantage and one edge we have right now, I would say right now, because technology keeps on improving and we're also trying to ensure that we are open again. But right now, one edge we just have is that we've structured the content. It is highly organized in the country specific way and in the way the student needs to learn. So it's not just a pool of data, it is what they need based on the curriculum to pass the exams and yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for your response. I think you've put my feelings that you put some thought into it. And as much as possible, urge yourself to see those opportunities as opportunities and see the threats as well as opportunities. And I think in the way you communicated your responses, you have shown a little bit of that mindset. And I really want to encourage you to work towards that. For all of yourself and John earlier, and if Mike were in Nigeria, I'd say Kenya is doing the same thing. Wherever there's the Startup Act, when implementation moves to an advanced level, try to get your work labeled and try to get yourself as a labeled startup so that it enhances the value that you have intrinsically placed in your undertaking. I would really encourage you to do that. But the best of luck with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I would take note of that and work on it.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we've come to the end of the conversations with the fellows. Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Precious, for the discussion and presentation that you've had. And thank you, Musa, for communicating with them, asking them questions and feedback as well. Really grateful. To wrap us up,
It's a pleasure. I always enjoy this. Please bring me back next time. And I won't tell you how much Musa is paying me to do this today, but I'll do it for free next time, okay?
Sure, thank you. Thank you. I would just like to ask if anybody has a question before we end, just so that we can answer to that. So if anybody in the audience has a question. But yeah, now that we have listened to the projects and now that we have essentially basically spoken about how to make things, improve, especially the fellowships projects, I would like to ask from Musa Ali Baba's point of view, right? For the projects that I have listened to today, what would you say like is the next path towards innovation for them? I mean, you've given them individual points, like for John, you talk about scalability. For Mike, right, putting Mombasa visibly doing something that's puts Mombasa on the map. And for Precious, especially, you've mentioned that like working with competition on the one hand and also seeing like how you can leverage huge things like ChatGPT is important. So the bulk of this was what led us to make this team of business innovation and e-learning. I would just like to ask you, like, what is the next step then for them, or would you say as a group that they should do?
Okay, so I think as a group, I mean, you all come from diverse places, right? But it does not matter what you do. The reason I've listened to these three presentations is because I believe each of the presenters is passionate about innovation and is passionate about localizing innovation or maybe bringing innovation from their local environments and opening it to the world because they believe they have something to give to the world, right? The important thing, and I'll tie it into what I was speaking to about Mike, is to ensure that you build a culture of innovation in your locality. It can't be about just one organization. You have to cluster several. So as you're working as you're developing yourself, your community of innovators also has to come together. That's why that collaborative mindset is important. That's why speaking to Mike and talking about putting Mombasa more on the map is important. That's why when talking about scaling up to John, it was important because these all have relevance. And then, looking at opportunities. But more important is as your fellows and as you're discussing here and as you're looking at innovation, engendering the culture of innovation is important. And that means bringing that innovation and showing your community as being a community of innovators will become crucial. And then having conversations. One of the big gaps in innovation here is funding it, right? And so they're international, there's venture capital, but you have to go so far. But you also have to engage with your local philanthropists and angel investors or angels or people who could be angels, they may not yet be angels, to build little networks of investment so that they're investing in their local space. And that will enable them, in essence, send word that we believe in you. And if your people believe in you, others will more readily work with you than vice versa. So the challenge for all of us is it's great what we're doing as individuals, but we have a challenge to create basically pockets of innovative culture in the environments that we are. And I'm glad, for example, John is in Ogbomosho. These are not necessarily people, these are towns that are even second cities in their own states. So that we're always dominated by the big cities and the state capitals, but it's good to see if something fantastic can come out of an Ogbomosho or anywhere else. Mombasa too has been in Nairobi's shadow for a bit, but it can also bring its own game to the table. That's the beauty of innovation, is that everywhere is in play. So make your own environment, go beyond your own businesses and make your own environment also hotbeds of innovation, and take advantage of startup acts or any other policies that come to bring your companies and your clusters into the big leagues. So that's what I would say for now.
All right. Thank you so much, Musa, for those final words. I'll just allow the fellows, if they have something to say as we begin to wrap up. Maybe Precious, Mike, and John.
Yeah, from me, I had a nice day. I had a nice conversation with you guys, and I've listened more. I've learned more from you. I've taken notes. Yeah, and yeah, one last thing. If any of you be able to come to Kenya, please look for me.
I'll take you up on that. I've been to Nairobi. I've not been to Mombasa. So now I have a reason to take a diversion, right? So I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your feedbacks. They were really important for me. I think it was a great session. And one important thing that you said has actually stuck with me is the fact that at the end of the day, it's not about the technology, it's about the people. Because the start of the developing the technology, it was even about the people. Like people were the start actually of this whole thing. So seeing a problem that people were facing that want to solve that led us to building a technology. So we shouldn't lose sight of that. So I think that's something I'm really going to take, one of the many things I'm really going to take out from this session, that we shouldn't lose sight of the people. People should still be at the center of the innovation, so we don't get lost into just building and forgetting the people we are building for in the first place. So yeah, I would take that. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate I appreciate this feedback, and I also want to encourage you, yes, to do that and practicalize it more. And I'm sure that you'll find a lot of success in getting human centric. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, John. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you so much for your feedback. And then I think I'll be thinking on how to scale up that innovations. And I don't know if there's a way we can actually, you can actually still engage us after this event. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Very kind. You know, the organizers, I'll have to defer to them. But if Musa, if it is within your rules to allow for interactions, I'm open to it. I have no problem in having you all reach me maybe via email or whatever other option the organizers, the Ayoka Fellowship team encourage us to have. I prefer to keep within it because I'm working within their rules, but I'm always open and happy to have these conversations. So please do reach out if you are able to, and we can continue the conversations. And if I'm ever in any of your towns, I'll also stop by to pay you a visit. But please keep doing what you do. It's very important.
All right. Yes, I will. There's no problem with connection. So Musa, I will copy all of you in an email just so that
Okay.
everybody has everybody's email.
Brilliant.
Yes, finally, thank you everybody for being here, for listening. It was 2 hours, it's quite a bit, but I think it was totally worth it listening to the fellows and also to Musa giving his wisdom as always.
You guys make me look like some old man there.
Every time I listen, I'm just like, yeah, you can't deny it. So thank you so much, Musa,
I
for being
appreciate that. I appreciate you're all very kind, and thank you so much. Thank
yeah,
you
and also to Oswald and Joshua that were here earlier, but they had to leave. Tomorrow is our final day and our closing session, and we have Tatiana's health innovation project. So let's show up for her and also be present. But before tomorrow, have a wonderful evening. If you have not yet eaten, go and eat and rest. And yeah, happy fasting to you too, Musa. I forgot.
That's
Hope you
fine. Thank you very much. It's almost time. It's
Okay.
actually just come to time. So I'll be running there to break my fast now.
All right, excellent.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you very much. Okay then. All right.
Bye-bye. Have a
Bye
nice
for now. Bye guys. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.